You have something in mind today?
Just a general reaction to some of the stuff I've been watching this week. And this is back to the force the vote. So this is forcing a Medicare for all floor vote. And the interesting thing, and that has lit up the internet from my point of view. And the interesting thing I'm noticing is the reactions. And this comes back into that larger thing of the left eating their young kind of thing, of the infighting and all that crap. And I think that's true of any group at all. We like to make fun of it because, this is America. So the reactions have been quite interesting. And one of them, the questions that is triggering in my mind is, are we timid? And I'm thinking timid because of capitalism. Like, if we really think about that, like, well, we have a choice. It's Coke or Pepsi. And like, you understand that's not a choice, right? Right. And we don't understand that. We're used to this sort of thing. And so this timidness, and I'm seeing a lot of gatekeeperism. And I think I'd like to also talk about one thing I've noticed. This is the generational shift, and this is something that happens every generation. And please don't take offense, but it's as a young white man, you might have a certain point of view, and when you get to become an old white man, you become conservative. That's just the natural thing. And just because you're conservative would have been Republican in a saner day and age, and not today, doesn't mean that conservatism isn't. You did. You can't call it Republican anymore.
I'm curious as to specifically what you're referring to on bringing the agreement on the aid bill. Is that right? So? As I understand it,
not the aid bill, the Medicare for all. So there's the
Medicare for
aid
all
bill, which is the $2,000 a month thing,
right?
And then we have to talk about the CARES Act. But this is just forcing a Medicare for all floor vote, and they're trying to skip past that altogether. And by the they, I mean the gatekeepers, and whether they're for good intention or not, they are skipping past all that. And now we're talking about the $2,000 checks. So I'm still on the Medicare for all vote. The $2,000 check thing, you have to really, I want to see a timeline of all the people who are using this for political footballs and like, oh no, we supported 2000 before, but not now, but I would have voted, but I didn't. I'm like, no, you were playing political football, all of you, and we all saw it.
Right.
Period. So the Medicare for all floor vote, though, is the Nancy Pelosi speakership is up for a vote, and we should get something out of our vote. And the representatives vote for us. We don't work for them. I don't follow AOC or O'Connor. They agree with me. That's why I support them. We tend to forget that. Like, we don't work for them, and they don't work for Nancy Pelosi either. Right. And so you need to extract something from the vote, which has happened every single time there's a speakership. This is not a new thing. It is a proven thing. But there's a lot of backlash. And half that backlash, I don't have proof, but it's very easy to see, oh, well, you're just a shill. Shut up. And the other half is, oh, you've been conditioned. If you can walk this road with me, I can maybe break through your conditioning.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's important to temper some of the things that the progressives, Bernie and Elizabeth Warren and AOC and some of the rest. I think it's important to temper what they're doing with a realpolitik kind of view. Like, you can't negotiate with someone if you're demonizing them.
True.
What you have to do is recognize what their political constraints are and be honest about what your political constraints are. True. And then if you're going to get something done, recognizing that both parties are constrained, what is it that we can do? We're not going to run far to the right. We're not going to run far to the left. So we're going to hold on to our principles, but understand that politics is not always about principles. It's about it's about a lot of expediency of realistic.
Now, how do you square not what I forgot what you just said of not demonizing the person you're trying to negotiate with.
Right.
How do you square that? Honest question. because I need to know the language as well. How do you square that with evidence that that other side you're negotiating with is always and forever be out to get you and has no good faith for you at all? How do you square that? Like, I know not demonizing, sure.
Right.
And a lot of people are uncomfortable with confrontation. I get that. But when I see evidence that the other side, being the Democratic establishment, has proven at every turn, to what I've seen, to be my enemy, to be against everything I'm standing for and everything the progressives ran on. So would you still negotiate with them?
Well,
if that were true, we go to if it's not true or not, that's one discussion. But
right.
if it were true, what do you say to somebody like me who believes that?
Well, I don't know. The analogy that springs to mind is the herd animals who are having a conflict, a battle between the two bulls of who's going to prevail in the herd. And then suddenly raising up their sights and realizing they're surrounded by wolves, that you are competing with one another, but there is this far worse enemy on the outside. So there are times when you have to be expedient within the party and say, okay, we could break off and have two wings of the Democratic Party that didn't talk to each other and just tried to demonize each other, or we can realize that it's only together that we can overcome the opposition.
Now, if Nancy Pelosi is one of those wolves, and I'm willing to talk to them, but they're only willing to shit on me.
No, I'm saying the Republicans are the wolves. Within the Democratic Party.
Wolves, yeah.
Well, you're competing with the competitor. The group that you're having a fair and honest conflict with. You're battling for power within your party, but you shouldn't lose sight of the fact there is another group of people who want your party destroyed. All of you, they don't.
Well, I see it slightly different. I see it slightly different. I see the group that wants me destroyed, and I see the other group that wants me destroyed. That's where I'm coming from.
I know.
So how do you address that to me? Whether you believe it or not, how do you address me?
Well, the question is, let's take an issue, for instance, healthcare.
Medicare for all.
I would be all down with Medicare for all. Okay. So we have a split Senate and a split not only Republican and Democrat, but we have some Democrats who don't favor Medicare for all. So do you stand firm and lose? Sometimes that's what you do. Yeah. You say, oh, I'm standing here, either my way or nothing. I'm not going to compromise. Or do you say, look, Medicare for all is what I want, but if I had Medicare for people who meet certain qualifications, that's a step in the right direction. So if you earn less than $50,000 a year, you're eligible for Medicare. So
now,
there's
tactic. That tactic, you start at your negotiating position, which is Medicare for all, and then you work your way back. You don't start at a compromise position, which is what you unfortunately were alluding to.
Right. You don't compromise.
Yeah. No, you come in saying, I want Medicare for all. You don't come in saying, I'm going to compromise this way.
Yeah. No.
Which is what people are asking me to do. They're like, no. Compromise, go your compromise position. It's like, no. I'm going to go my outrage position, then compromise. I'm not skipping that step.
Well, I don't know. It's kind of like, if you're the DA and you're seeking the death penalty, life imprisonment is a punishment that is very severe.
Yeah.
So just because you don't get, it shouldn't be either death penalty or let them go.
Well, no. It's death penalty and then discussion, then compromise.
Right.
Which is exactly what we're saying. And what I'm hearing is, not from you, from others.
Well, the other side.
I'm going to start at a weak position.
No, I agree with you.
What the hell are you doing?
The other side has to offer you the compromise, and then you accept the compromise. If you're in the weaker position, for instance, right now, Medicare for all is not a reality. So you're trying to get it through. Okay. So fine, stand firm, Medicare for all. Yeah. Where does the compromise come? It has to come from the other side. That's what you're doing. You're saying we want Medicare for all. So we're not going to agree to, anything but that. And they say, well, we just can't do that, but let's have means testing for Medicare for all. And you say, well, that's not what I want, but okay, we'll get that. That way you've gained something in the process.
Right.
So I agree with you.
And what I'm seeing is I'm fighting the Democrats and then I'm fighting the Republicans.
Well,
like you're asking me to skip a step.
Well, when we were fighting in World War II, we allied with the Russians against the Germans. And then we immediately started opposing the Russians. So you got to do one battle at a time. First,
we got Biden elected, and now we have to fight Biden. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, first thing we have to do is win Georgia. If we win Georgia, we're going to be in a very strong position.
Sure.
Mitch
now the Medicare for all thing is there is leverage. There's absolute leverage. It's proven leverage. It's proven to be working. The whole I'm not going to vote for Nancy for Speaker. Now, caveats in case people don't know. If Nancy doesn't become Speaker, it does not mean a Republican will. That is propaganda. And we should be asking of
just a lack of understanding of the House rules.
Yeah, and we should be demanding of anyone. I want these things, and we should be demanding more than that. It's just Medicare for all in the middle of a pandemic is, from a communication standpoint, the easiest thing to do. And when everything seems impossible, let's.
Now, are you saying you want to force the Speaker to bring Medicare for all up for a floor vote?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you're not saying they have to favor it. They might not favor Medicare for all. But you're going to tell them, okay, let's bring.
I want a floor vote. I don't want co-sponsors. I don't want lines in the press. I want a line drawn in the sand.
I got you.
Yeah. And this is the campaigning thing, and this is where when I see all the things of establishments trying to get rid of any progressive challengers, like people trying to make the Democratic Party what we thought it was, what we were told the Democratic Party used to be was, and that I guess was a lie. I have no idea. But people who think those are good things, and we want to force that about, and all those people won their election, and the people who win again Medicare for all lost. Like, this is a winning strategy if you're in the people's best interest. If you're in your own entrenched power's best interest, like Nancy Pelosi, and when we say establishment, that's what we mean. You're obviously going to fight against it. But this is a perfect tool. Like, okay, I'm going to get you on the record, and there are Republicans we can force to do this as well, is what people are forgetting. And we're in the middle of a pandemic, and people are forgetting. And these kind of crises can be worked by the establishment and the proletariat, and people are forgetting. No. But it's like, in 2 years, I'm going to say, you voted against Medicare for all in the middle of a pandemic. No. You're going to lose your election.
All right.
It's that simple.
Well,
and they know it. That's why the
Republicans are still saddled with the reality of if you don't do what we want, we will primary you, and you won't even be in the next election.
Yeah, and the progressives need to do the same damn thing.
Well, that's interesting. I've heard a lot of, well, not a lot, but some Republicans lately, Ben Sasse notably, and Mitt Romney, and some of the more traditional Republicans, talk about how uncomfortable they are in this new Republican Party.
Yeah, they're actually being questioned.
Right, and I hear you, and I agree with you. In general principles, I don't know if tactics I agree with, but I'm not happy in the Democratic Party. I think it's far too corporate, and that's what the Clintons did to the party. But what if we split both parties, and we had basically a reactionary party, the Trumpers, a conservative party, Romney and Sasse and others, a liberal party with Biden as the head, and a progressive party. Let's just put Elizabeth Warren up there, or Bernie Sanders, or somebody.
Absolutely. So what you're talking about is fusion party tickets.
Well, but imagine a scenario where there are four parties. Who wins?
The coalition wins. The issue wins, whatever that issue might be.
If all four parties are putting up an individual candidate for president, who wins?
The coalition wins. The issue wins.
Take fusion politics out of this. There are 4 independent people running for
and they have 4 independent ideologies and platforms and issues and
so
bills.
On the ballot, you pick 1, 2, 3, or 4. So who wins in that scenario? Are there more? Who is the most populated group? Well, if you look at it, Trump has got between 30 and 35%. He wins.
Well, I look at that differently. The majority of people don't vote. The majority of voters are split. Yeah. And the majority of those individual splits are also split.
Yeah.
Between fanatics and normalized.
Right.
It's like, I'm Democrat because my parents are Democrat and I was told that's the good team. So, okay. I don't know much about it, and I'm Republican because my parents were Republican.
Right,
blah, 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 blah. And then there's the fanatics who are fanatics. Yeah. And they actually only compromise, they have more like 10% of the population.
Yeah.
Fanatics on both sides. And the normalized have about 20. Wait, is it 20? Yeah, 15% of the population. Well, and then the apathetics have 55%, something like that.
Yeah. Well, the
who wins? That's a false. I feel like that's a false.
Well, what I'm saying is who has the majority? Who has the most votes? That's what I'm saying is who has the most votes. I don't know that it's clear, but if we split the Democratic Party in half, I don't know how the numbers fall. Is it 60-40, progressives to liberals?
Oh, well, we could study the increase in voter participation under Trump and Bernie in those scenarios. And you basically, you divide the country in half, you divide your country in half, and then you divide the voters in half. Right. And so the Republican Democrats lose a few percentage points, but most of the gains are from people who have already opted out of that crap anyway. Mm-hmm. Like, if you've opted into that crap on either side, how am I going to change you without some intervention? I'm not. Yeah. So the appeal this is what happens when Obama got elected because of the black vote. People who didn't vote came out. A voting bloc came out. Trump got elected because of his bloc who didn't vote came out. Biden got elected because the suburbanites who didn't vote came out. Yeah. Bernie would have gotten elected because people like me, well, I vote, but young people would have come out. It's the people who are not voting that comes out. So you stop. I warn against subtracting from the current formula.
Right. That was my contention before the election, that I thought Bernie would have won by a greater majority than Biden did, but
because he would have brought new people in.
Right, but I don't know if that would have been a Pyrrhic victory or not, because what kind of coalition is he going to find with, the more conservative Democrats?
Well, that's a fun topic because there are many points. Remember the horseshoe theory, like the biggest one right now is election integrity. Right. I have 1,000% in common on this one issue with the crazy Trump Nazi people. Like, we agree on this. We're like,
please don't ally with Steve Bannon. I don't think.
Well, no, just this one issue. Yeah, I get it. But that's identity politics. I eschew that. I was like, we both agree in election integrity, and we both notice our elections are not real. They're a fake. They're a shit show. They're a circus. There is proof if you care to look for it. And I know I sound conspiracy, but you just got to break through that thing. We have alignment on some issues. And when you're talking about fusion party tickets, that's how that works. The issue is what's elevated.
Yeah. I'm with you totally on the notion of fusion politics. That's why I joined the new party a long time ago. It's the only party I've ever really joined. And that they are pushing, fusion elections. And I think that makes a lot of sense.
Oh, yeah.
It's more like a parliamentary process.
Yeah.
And it forces folks to focus on issues and not on personalities.
Yep.
And I think that's, we've gone astray in American politics by making politics.
Yeah, it's consumerism. It's consumerism.
Right. We sell it like we do, life insurance or anything else. So if we had a system of fusion politics, I'm in favor of splitting the parties, not just in two, but probably in
to 12 is. I vote 12. We can go
well,
through that.
I think it should be. I think it should be a constant process.
Yeah.
For me, you know, if you, I've asked this of people before, I may have put this to you before, but if you had to choose one issue that you wanted to be, you know, your most important issue, for me, it is environmental degradation. It's not just, you know, planetary warming, but it's the destruction of the environment, and it's the killing off of species, and it's monocultural agriculture. And that is that is an overwhelming issue, because in my estimation, if we don't address that, everything else is moot.
Right.
You know,
now I do the same thing where now I again keep a fusion brain of I don't just want one issue. That I've seen the danger of one issue voter. But let me finish off the like mine is election integrity and narrative control. Again, for the same reasons of those are fundamental to the other fights.
Right. Well, in the same way you were talking about the nature of compromise, if I had it my way, I would be part of this environmental protection party, not Green Party, but every decision should be made in government on the basis of whether it makes our environment worse or if it improves it. Everything we do should be about improving the environment. The earth is a very sensitive organism, and we're about to kill it. And if we don't take care of that, nothing else matters. But I would come into it with that argument.
Right.
I'm not coming in to compromise on that. So what I'm saying is, I'm in this party, and we will vote for the person who agrees to our terms. So if you're a candidate and you agree to our terms, our party will nominate you.
Right.
If you don't, we will either nominate someone else from some other party, or we will bring our own candidate in.
Yeah. Or not participate.
If nobody is in favor of what we want, then
or strike.
We put our own candidate up. We vote for him, even though we know that we're not going to prevail. Well, we're going to take those votes away from anybody else.
Yeah, that's the argument against Nancy Pelosi in this Medicare for All thing. You just made it.
Right. Yeah. But the process, I'm with you in the sense of the integrity of the process. It's not just how we count the votes and so forth, but it's the integrity of the process itself. And there are a lot of steps to be made. I think taking money out of it, you know, forcing all campaigns to draw from a common fund that's taxpayer backed, so that you see all candidates on an equal footing. You know, that's the only
I think the idea of donating to political parties as like a PAC kind of thing, that is a dangerous thing, and I don't think we give it too much talk, because it's like I would join a party that with specific goals of we have these 15 points of election reform, and we are going to keep this party going until we get it, and then we will disband the party. We're not going to carry it forward. We just want these things, and we will pool our money, our resources, our time. And with the explicit, it has to be explicit. It can't be taken advantage of by opportunists. It has to be explicit of, once we get it, we're disbanding, and then you go fight your next issue. And that would give me common cause with people across Kentucky, you know, the people I don't agree with on anything else, but we do agree on election reform. And we would pull our money. It's when I'm donating. The danger here is like I'm donating to the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, either way. And that becomes self-protecting. And I understand how the consultant class works. And we have to really be knowledgeable of that and avoid it. And one way is have parties with short-term goals, and don't call them parties. Call them coalitions.
Yeah. So you're looking for essentially a formative rather than a normative structure.
Absolutely.
You're always in a formative stage. And while today my issue might be, you know, watersheds, okay, as part of this idea of protecting the environment, I think the watersheds are probably one of the most important things we do in environmental, to keep environmental integrity, that I may change my focus later on to soil erosion or some other aspect of it. So I'm going to promote an idea, and once we've issued laws, we've got legislation to support that idea, then we disband, and I look for, I may change even from an environment, maybe water is the most important thing. After that, the next most important thing for me is police reform. So I'm going to focus on that. But I think the idea that you have to take all of the issues and cluster them into two groups and choose one over the other, that's the problem.
This is the danger that I'm seeing on this reaction. And one of the notes, and this was a Sirota thing of like, well, you got to do more. And a lot of this kind of things is like, well, that's all you're asking. Like, and we have to group all this together. And I'm like, no, that's a danger, because that eventually erodes into a form of tyranny where you have to have, what do you describe a movement that has a very rigid set of goals and parameters led by one person and voice? What do you call that?
It's a cult, I think.
Right, exactly. And I would have said tyrannical dictatorship, but cult also works. Right. So the idea is to not put power in that in the first place. It's the idea of, it's not you need one thing, because you'll always find fault. Like, there is no magic silver bullet. Like, stop thinking that way. It's the idea that we need to promote, and this is where we need a narrative of, I want everyone to do something. I don't care what it is, as long as you're doing something. And we shouldn't expect one plan and one strategy and one anything. That's insane. We are way too many people. Right. It's the story of, back to the Bible, it's the loaves and fishes. It's like, the loaves and fishes wasn't about Jesus was magic. He was some Trumpian dictator who enforced one will amongst the people. It's, some of you had fish, some of you had bread, some of you had nothing, some of you had more, some had less. If we share and work together and everybody does their part, we all get a fish sandwich.
Right.
That's all it is. It's about solidarity.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that attracted me to Bernie Sanders, is that I don't know if you've seen his book or not, but on the
I bought it and never read it.
Well, I've read most of it, and a lot of it is just chronicling the campaign. The essential idea is, he's really, he's kept it pretty. I could probably give Bernie's speech because I've heard it so many times, and that's what was attracting me. He wasn't about trying to make himself popular. He was about trying to put these ideas out that he knew were he knew
they're hard to argue with. They're hard to argue with.
It's a popular position. Medicare for all has got more than 50% approval. It's not that it's a some kind of wild idea. But he said what's important is we create this revolution. So what Bernie did is going to survive. On the other hand, what Trump did was made his about the cult of Trump. And fortunately, when Trump is out of the picture, and I hope he dies soon, I really hope he dies. But when he's out of the picture, there is no continuity. I mean, Junior doesn't pick it up. Ivanka doesn't pick it up. Nobody carries Trump's torch except Trump.
So it's kind of like getting the military all worked up in Desert Storm to go kill somebody, not letting them kill them, and then bringing them home, and then they kill their wife. Right. That happened a lot.
Well,
actually, it was scary as hell.
These folks were there before. I mean, Trump didn't create the.
Well, no. No. A lot of Trump people were not there before. He brought new people. Again, as I'm saying, he brought a whole bunch of people back into the fold. Well, exactly. Just like the black votes with Obama, just like the suburban vote with Biden. No, they weren't there before.
Good. That's the thing. Well, I think this is fascinating. I think it's always interesting to talk with you about the kind of the prospect of an alternate reality where we could have a system that really functioned. I think that's an idea consistent with what I was talking about with Bernie. You put an idea out there that may seem a little strange now, but eventually, people start thinking about it and they come around to it, that
if it's approachable, if it's understandable, and
if it's
giving
valid,
people permission to believe in themselves.
Right.
It's the same thing religious people do and politicians people do. It's like, stop listening to the people who are telling you can't do something because it affects their wallet. Stop listening to them. They're lying to you.
Right.
You can believe whatever you want. It's okay.